Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the Band Pod. I hope this finds you safe and healthy. This week, we're joined by Dr. Jeremy Stovall from Jacksonville State University, talking about his philosophy on concert programming. All right, so last episode, we talked about programming your own concert and some of the elements that go with it. Can you kind of talk about through your process on concert programming?
Sure. I think first and foremost, I think it just has to be a great piece of music. I think one of the first things I go to is melody. It has to have something that's, a beautiful melody, and then I kind of go from there. Obviously, one of the biggest things that I'm looking for is what's going to fit my group. I think a lot of people will pick music that they like, and that's great. I think you have to like the music, but it's totally wrong for their ensemble based on their strengths and weaknesses. So I try to find pieces that are going to fit my group with the personnel that I have each given semester.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest things that I'm looking for. And then from there, I go on to think about how all of these pieces fit together and what's the flow of the concert, and is there a variety of different musical styles? Because if it all sounds the same, I think the audience will get bored. So I think as much variety as we can have, the better. I think that's more enjoyable for the audience. I think it's more enjoyable for the ensemble. It's more enjoyable for the conductor.
Right. So one of the key areas is making sure that the program is fit for your group, and you kind of talked about that. But while the performance is important, but it's also good to think about what your group can get out of it, since we are, it is about educating. So what are your thoughts on that?
Exactly. I mean, I'll never forget a conversation that I had with a former student, and I asked what they were playing for festival, and the person said, "Well, I'm playing Eric Whitacre's October." And I was like, "Oh, what a beautiful piece! I love that. Such a great melody. It's beautiful." I was like, "You must have a really good oboe soloist." Because there's an oboe solo right at the very beginning, and he said "No, I don't have an oboe," and it just kind of struck me. I was like, "Well, I don't think I would play that piece if you don't have an oboe."
Right.
So just thinking about the strengths of your ensemble. If you have a really strong low brass section, you might pick pieces that kind of feature the low brass predominantly. If you have a weak clarinet section, try to stay away from things that are very exposed for the clarinet. So, again, I can't stress the importance of programming for the ensemble that you have. And that means you might have to go back to the drawing board and pick something different. Now, obviously, I think there needs to be challenges. I don't think it needs to be something that the group can just read down and have no struggle with. So you have to try to find that sweet spot between, is this challenging enough, but not so challenging that the ensemble will never be able to play it, and trying to find that sweet spot in between. So it's still going to challenge you, but it's something that can be achievable.
Right. Yeah, definitely something that and make sure that you include the the various groups in the ensemble, like making sure that regardless of what you program, the percussioner stay busy and you're not just completely ignoring one group for the entirety of the concert.
Exactly. And that's a good point, especially with the percussion section, because most concert band music, if we can be honest, is not very difficult for the percussion section.
Right.
So trying to find something that's going to be challenging for them, or it has enough parts, because so many of these older pieces it's very, very minimal. They'll have snare, bass, and timpani, and that's it. Well, that's only 3 parts. So what are the other 8 people going to do? And then the actual music that they're being asked to play is not that difficult. So, what are we getting out of that? How are the students being challenged and progressing based on what you choose? So, I'm not saying don't choose pieces that have minimal parts, but if you're going to do that, maybe only do one of those, and then pick other pieces that are going to be more challenging for the percussion section, or incorporate more parts so everybody gets involved.
Right. Kind of to piggyback off of that, what are your thoughts on picking like standard music that might be a little bit older versus like some of the new pieces that are getting added into?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's important for us to kind of program multiple styles and multiple time periods. I mean, it's where we came from. So I think we have to have an eye towards our history, but not, play all old pieces or not play all new pieces, because I think it's important to play some of these older things that are kind of like core repertoire, standard repertoire, that are like classic band pieces. But there's also a lot of really great new music. So I think variety is like the key.
Awesome. And last, like, what are some things that you look for in pieces when you're like looking to program? And that might be, like, what are you looking in like the first song that you program versus like in the second or third songs?
Gotcha. So I like to think about, and I spend a lot of time doing this, thinking about the program and how it flows together. So each piece is going to be a little bit different. So it takes you like through a lot of different emotions and whatnot. So I like to think about, what we start with. It's like you want something to grab your attention. Like if you go to any type of, Broadway show, it's like the overture or, the opening credit, the Fox fanfare, that everybody knows. You want something that's kind of up tempo, that's exciting, and not too long. Just so it's kind of a good, exciting, energetic start to your program. And then you can start to think about, well, do I do something that's a little bit slower, or do I do something that's a little bit more involved or longer? And then by the end, I think, again, ending with something similar to the beginning. So it's, shorter, it's up tempo, it's exciting. So it's kind of like an arc to the programming. You start with something, short and energetic, maybe up tempo, and then you kind of move through some other emotions, and then you end with something short, fast, and exciting. So the bookends are, are the most entertaining and energetic pieces that you play.
Right. So do you typically like find a piece that you want to play and then build around it, or do you go like, is there another process that you use?
Honestly, I think it's different from semester to semester, from year to year. There might be a piece of music that I'll listen to, or I'll hear somebody perform that I really enjoy, and I'll just keep that in my back pocket. Like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I've got a running list on my phone.
Yeah,
pieces like, it's crazy. There's probably 200 pieces on a note on my iPhone.
Right.
But I'll just kind of put that there and think about, well, what else would fit around this? Or is there any kind of theme that I could come up with to kind of match around this?
Together.
Right. Or, how would this fit with this other piece that I really like? And then, from there, consider like, well, can my group do this semester? Is it going to be beneficial and educational to them? So it's kind of random. Who knows where inspiration is going to strike? So I don't think there's like a set process that I always use. It's kind of evolving, and I'll interchange this piece and that piece just to come up with a good flow and what I think will fit my ensemble best.
Do you have like a favorite program or something maybe you've done recently that you really enjoyed doing?
Yeah, I was it was actually this past fall. I did a concert of all female composers, and it was really interesting because more and more I'm not only thinking about the quality of the piece that I want to perform with my group, but I'm also thinking about who's being represented with a composer,
right?
Because there are a lot of underrepresented groups of composers, and I think a lot of people, it's not that they don't like certain people's music, they just aren't exposed to it. So it was fun to kind of program music written by women and see all of these different styles and types of pieces that were being written. And also I'm looking at my ensemble and I see a very diverse group of people.
Yeah.
So I feel like, it's not doing anyone a service if I'm playing music by all white male composers, which is a
Right.
predominant section of composers. So if I'm choosing African American composers or female composers or whatever else, I think that is representative of our society, our university, or your high school, whatever else. So I think that's important to consider as well. So not only the quality of the piece, but who actually wrote the piece.
Right. And sometimes too often we get into the, this is Holst, or this is,
Right.
Granger or Mackey or all the names that
Right.
we hear all the time. And then,
And it's not to discredit those people at all, because they all write, wonderful, wonderful music. The whole suites, or, John Mackey's, it's all fantastic music, but we don't have to do all of that all the time. So, if we're trying to figure out different pieces to play, I think we have to search a little bit more for certain groups of people, but I think it's more beneficial to us and society and our students if we choose a diverse set of composers. And it's so much easier nowadays to find different pieces. There's so many resources out there that you can look to, and it's not just going to J.W. Pepper or going to YouTube. I mean, there is a database. It's called the Institute for Composer Diversity, that will allow you to go in and search by certain criteria. So say I want to grade 3 pieces of music by an African American composer for wind band. I can sort this list and come up with, hundreds of pieces that fit that criteria. And there's so many things out there like that. There's another one called Diverse Composers of Wind Band Music, and it's just a spreadsheet, and you can search through any criteria that you want, and then there'll be sound recordings and links to the composer's website or a YouTube recording of the piece. And there's just so many resources out there, so it's a lot easier nowadays to find diverse music by diverse composers.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I think that's all we've got time for, but I really appreciate you coming on and answering some questions.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Hey guys, this is Kay.
And this is Jay.
Welcome back to the Band Pod, Episode 2.
Episode 2, baby.
On this episode, we're going to go over some programs we received from the first episode, and then we're also going to go over some of the early submissions that we've received for the next assignment, where you guys create your own program. But first off, let's get started. Jay's going to talk a little bit about some of the programs we received from the first assignment that you found online.
Yeah, so thank you all that have already submitted stuff for it. That's great. It's Wednesday when we're recording this right now, and it's like Wednesday morning, and like half the people haven't done. And this isn't due till Friday. We'll put the grades in Saturday for it. But we really liked what we saw already, especially those of you that took the extra time. I know a lot of people went above and beyond with it, and I think that's cool. We tried to make these assignments. Maybe you expose yourself to some new stuff that you had to listen to like find out what it was. I know personally we both like found songs that we had never heard before that people submitted that we're losing our minds over. The one I'm going to talk about first is actually, so if you submitted the program that had the song called The Earth by Jun Nagao, I started researching that a ton because I was listening to it, and I just stood up and screamed and made a lot of noise because it was really, really cool. And so this guy, Jun Nagao, we all know like Holst, and Holst made the planets. We know Jupiter, and we know Mars and all that. He arranged it for this quartet to play. Jun Nagao arranged for this quartet, and then he's like, hey, I'm a composer, I'm arranging Holst, there are only 7 planets here. And he's like, he thought back to school, and he's like, wait a minute, there's 9 planets. So when Holst did it, he did not account for Pluto. He did not make one for Pluto, because Pluto was not a planet back then, and it's not a planet now, rip Pluto. But also Holst didn't include Earth. I don't know why he didn't include Earth, but he didn't do it. So he wrote his own for Earth and Pluto. And so someone put The Earth by Jun Nagao on here, and I listened to it, and it's just the coolest thing, because it's taking from like all these great like concert band melodies, as well as like pulling other licks, like the Mars lick is in there. And at the end, it goes into this just cool part where it's like kind of halfway quoting. I'm going to give you just like the description of what's going on. Like while I'm listening to this, as I'm listening to it, and it's like vamping, and it's getting loud, and it's getting cooler, and I'm like, it sounds kind of familiar, and it's because he's halfway quoting Holst First Suite. And then all of a sudden, like, it's just something happens, and it transitions into like just Holst First Suite mixed with his own melodic ideas. Please go listen to it. It's so cool. I really enjoyed that one.
I gotta say, anytime that you guys can come up with something that we haven't heard of before, that's pretty awesome. Okay, so just think outside the box and get excited and get us excited too, because that really was a cool piece. We were both listening to it together, and it just kind of gave us one of those musical moments that was really cool.
Yeah, I was listening. He was sitting on the couch, and then I just start like screaming, like, "This is so cool!" And it was great. And we're gonna do a little something like that for y'all at the end too. We're gonna give you some listening suggestions. This isn't required at all. Just maybe some like cool music that we know in the band world that we think you should listen to. Some of the others that I thought were really good. One of them was we talked about the themed concerts in the last episode, in episode 1 of the Band Pod. And someone found an American March themed concert. And it was just like 7 straight Carl King and Sousa marches. So they're all like 2 minutes long, so they could shove like 7 into that program, and it worked out. So good job on that. You put the title on there too with like the themed marches. It was great. What other ones? Some of you did some jazz stuff, which was great. I think the thing to notice about jazz bands is like if you're doing a jazz band only concert, you don't have to stick to the 3 or 4 maybe song limit. You could like 5, 6, or 7 in there because there's naturally it's going to be a shorter track, and maybe people are just there for the jazz band. So it's just all sorts of different lengths on there, and just some really good programs. I found more than just that Johnny Nagao song in there that I hadn't heard. And I've made a little list on I've got a notepad right by my computer that I've been writing down just like frantically every note about everyone I need to call back and do stuff for. And now there's a separate little list on that page of just charts that I need to listen to that I haven't heard before. So I really enjoyed it. Good job. And we're going to talk now about some of the people that have gone ahead and worked on next week's assignment. This is the one that will be due on the 24th, and this is the one where you're making your own programs. Okay, what you got to say about that?
Yeah, so I picked 2 programs out of maybe the 6 that have already turned it in early, which is fantastic, by the way. So anytime you guys want to turn stuff in early, it gives us some stuff to talk about, but it also shows that you're working ahead, and we hope you're enjoying the assignments. It gives you a little bit of a way to be creative and to kind of think about how we do things as well. So the first one I want to talk about is a program. It starts with a march called ABA Symphonic March, it's fantastic. I actually had not heard this one before. I listened to it. It's got some cool little parts in there. It does sound like it's a little bit more difficult. Features some woodwind, trades off some melodies in there with the brass. About 4 minutes long, very good march. Follows up by Fusion by Balmages, which is one that is a fantastic piece. It is brass heavy. It is about 8 minutes long, so that's another heavy one. And then we close up with First Suite by Holst, which is a standard. I gotta say, this is a tough program. Okay, it is right up my alley, something I would definitely program. So putting all of those together, I thought they fit well together. But one thing to keep in mind when you do programming like this is to make sure that you have it for an ensemble that A, can handle it, okay, and then B, think about the chops, okay? So for brass players, are they going to be able to play for 20, 25 minutes? Are you going to have the time frame to be able to work up to that? And then, do they all fit cohesively? Now, for this one in particular, I do think they all fit well together. Just obviously make sure that you have the time to put it all together, and then make sure that you consider the limitations in brass and percussion, all of that. But I did think all of these fit well together. The ABA Symphonic March, that's something that I'm going to need to look into a little bit more. It was a fantastic choice. Now, the second program I want to talk about, it starts with Fireman's Quick Step March. That's one I had not heard before. Okay, that one is it's not quite as fast as I would have thought for a quick step march, but it does have some good moments in there. A little trumpet part in there that's nice, obviously, for the trumpet players. I quite enjoyed that. Now it goes into Nostalgia by Galante. Now, you know me, anything by Galante is a yes. Okay, so fantastic job on that. Choreography by Sheldon. All right, and then followed up by Scram by Stevenson. So we've got a four-part little concert here. It works well together. You know, Nostalgia kind of slows things down. Choreography by Sheldon. It hits almost every style. That's one of my personal favorite pieces. It's got some really good moments in there. And then we close it out with Scram by Stevenson. That is, you know, that is a relatively difficult part that includes some trumpet solo section in there that got me going like, that's going to take a while to put together. Okay, so just keep in mind it was a little bit on the trumpet heavy side. However, you know, for a 4-part concert, if you wanted to consider, you started with a march, you slow it down, then you hit choreography. By itself, those 3 songs would be fine for a concert. But I see how you put Scram with an exclamation point at the end of that. How it can kind of tie everything in, you know, and then just make sure Scram is quite a bit harder than maybe the other pieces that you've picked. So just make sure that, once again, your group's going to be able to handle that. So if you think you can get those 3 pieces and then add a harder one in there, that's totally fine. But just make sure that the pieces make sense in that order right there.
Jumping on this before I lose my train of thought. Don't feel limited necessarily to concert programs on there. Some of you put some jazz programs, and that would be cool to see too. Just like and you know, it'll expose you to some more of the jazz music that's out there, especially. And the other thing, just before I forget, talking about the first one that Kay was talking about, if you don't do anything else this week, go listen to Holst's first suite movement 1. Chacon is like, it's in my top 10. It's very, 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 very good. Very, very good. And it's also the thing that I was talking about that John Nagel quoted from when he wrote Earth. So go listen to Holst Suite 1, first suite, movement 1. Okay, sorry to interrupt there.
No, that's perfectly fine. And listen, guys, this is something that we'll probably do too. We might even create a mini-series where we talk about some pieces that you guys should listen to. But when we talk about standard pieces of wind band literature, Holst first suite and even Holst second suite are 2 pieces that are standard works. Everybody knows them. Okay, now wind ensemble, I know we might have toyed around with it before in the past, but just know that it's one of those pieces that everybody knows, everybody talks about. It's a good standard and a good place to start. All right, and so we'll be giving you guys some content on that coming up soon, and we'll give you some pieces to listen to too that you can maybe explore on your own. All right.